Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto interview series where my guest today, I am thrilled to say, is Fan from Heavenly Fan. Welcome. It is
Hello,
Fan, right?
Steve.
Not Fawn.
Yeah, a fan. Yes, yes.
Okay, good, good.
It just as it reads. Yes.
Because I had Indigo Neely on. I don't know if you saw that interview, and I was pronouncing it Nilly instead of Neely, and she had to correct me. So I want to make sure that I got that
Oh
squared
dear.
away right away.
No, you
But
got it
I'm
right. That's perfect.
okay, awesome. Well, I'm thrilled to have you here. And I know that my viewers are thrilled to have you here. So many people, when I mentioned that I was going to try and get you on, were super excited. And the biggest question they had is, where has Fan been for the last 4 months? So maybe we should start off with that.
Where have I been? So the things happening. Well, I think people have been watching me probably notice I disappear off from time to time, and sometimes it's for good reasons, and sometimes I just need a break. And I think the last few months, I kind of just, I find the creativity kind of comes in waves, and then it just reached the point that I kind of just, sort of quietly kind of wanted to take a little bit of break. I didn't anticipate 4 months, but it just ended up that way. So
But you're back now. I saw that you had a video this weekend. Are you
that's
feeling
right. Yes.
energized and ready to start kicking out some new recipes?
Yeah, I think that that's the whole point of a break is then, you can kind of come back and feeling really good about it and have, ideas sort of flowing in and you want to just get on with it. So yeah, I'm really glad to be back.
So, for my viewers who aren't familiar with you, you have sort of a niche carved out in the keto world, which is vegan keto, which I think a lot of people may feel are sort of contradictory, just given the makeup of the ketogenic way of eating. How did you find your way into that particular niche?
Well, it wasn't by choice because I have been vegan for a long time. So I first went vegetarian, I think it was back in 2007, and then went vegan in 2011. So it was very much part of my life, and it kind of just went from there. And in the past, when I was vegetarian, I think I've kind of doubled with Atkins type of thing. So at that time, I was still eating cheese and eggs, that kind of stuff. And then this time around, it was different. And to be honest, I had no idea whether that was doable. And I was kind of exploring my knowledge and discovering what keto was about. And so when I started, I wasn't even sure anybody else knew what it was, let alone vegan keto. So yeah, so being vegan was my default position. It was just a matter of finding ketogenic food within that realm and see how far I could go. And yeah, you're looking at it.
What sort of distinct challenges does that combination bring to recipe creation or even just day-to-day meal prep?
Um, Good question. I think being a vegan, you're kind of trained to be challenged by your food choices. I mean,
Mhm.
there's always a transitional period. Eventually, it becomes second nature, but there's a learning curve. So, in a way, I like to think that probably helped me because I knew in time it would, things will come together in some way. So when it comes to recipes, obviously, I mean, it's exciting at the same time, as much as challenging. It's the fact that I want I want to know if something can be ketonized, and so that kind of gave me the excitement to kind of experiment. So I had to kind of dab into ingredients I'd never seen before, never used before, and see what happens. So a lot of experiments. I mean, it's challenging and just repetition, tweaking um, ingredients, quantities, combinations, and until you create something that's good.
On the topic of ingredients, Do you find being in the UK that it's difficult to get some of the ingredients that we use or that you see in keto recipes here in the States?
I don't really know, to be honest, because I don't really have a knowledge of what's available in the US. But I'm under the impression that there are a lot more sort of ketogenic products over there. I mean, over here, to be honest, I can't really think of anything on top of my head that people go for. Perhaps keto in general is just more popular in the US. I don't really know. But I have to kind of work with what I have. So I don't really worry about what is available, over here or not. Um, I just use whatever I've got here. So yeah, I think probably because there are less ready-made products here, I have to be a lot more creative with things.
Do you find in your comments that you ever wind up dealing with people saying, "Oh, you can't use that. That's not keto," or I call them either the keto police or the ingredient police. That like telling you, "Oh, you shouldn't do that." Oh, soy, for example, because I'm sure you've got as a vegan some recipes that use soy. Anytime I even mention soy, heads start exploding over here. Do you get any of that in your comments?
Well, that is such an interesting question because, yeah, first of all, there are people who, I think they're more knowledgeable. Maybe they've been doing keto for a lot longer. They have a certain set idea of what ketogenic diet should be and what should be involved. And yes, well, I wouldn't say overwhelming number, but a fair number of people would kind of go, well, surely that there's too many carbs or whatever it is, or it's not keto for whatever reason, or vegan fundamentally cannot be keto. So that's kind of that. But when it comes to soy products, yeah, I have to say, I'm so glad you asked. I was thinking about making a video about that. It's a whole topic. I was quite taken aback from the kind of almost fear of tofu, or the things that sort of made with soybeans. I understand there's probably some health concerns if you have some, certain condition that you're not you worry about, estrogen and that kind of stuff. But overall, I've been eating tofu from the day I was born, probably, and there's a big distinction between tofu and tempeh, which is made of soybeans as a whole, versus soy products. Because soy products, a lot of times, is quite processed, maybe added into some ready-made products. So it's very hard to explain the difference. And also being a vegan, I think, I've been in the UK for a long time. People are happily, all the vegans and vegetarians I know, they're happily eating tofu. So I don't know, the kind of particular almost phobia and fear is kind of very much within keto community. And I don't know where that's coming from. Maybe some sort of experts once upon a time say something. But personally, I find that is unfounded because if you look at the populations in the world, Asia, for instance, the entire continent, they've been consuming tofu for centuries. We're talking centuries. It's an ancient food. So yeah, it's I eat it every day. Well, not every day, but frequent enough. It's very much part of my life. And as a vegan, it's a great source of protein. So yeah, you tell me, Steve, where's that coming from?
So there, you mentioned experts. You didn't do the air quotes when you said it. Usually I do because there are a lot of, oh, I got to get it on the screen here, experts, especially on YouTube within the keto community that like telling people what they should and shouldn't eat, and then their followers turn around and parrot that on other channels. And like I said, soybean. Me, I first off, I'm a big believer the dose makes the poison. And if you're that afraid of soy, that you think walking through the Asian aisle in the grocery store is going to kill you, then maybe you need to recalibrate a little bit, or do a little bit of research on soy. Me personally, I can't do soybean oil. You mentioned earlier, the processing. I get terrible inflammation, feelings of arthritis, tendonitis, and so forth. So, to me, that's what I avoid. But anyhow, enough on soy. I do want to continue though a little bit, and this will be the last question I ask about sort of the irritable comments. Do you ever have carnivores show up and give you grief?
Well, I've had this channel since 2017, and I'm constantly amazed how little negative, how few negative comments I have. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. Maybe you should have a mix. But I find, as you said about, the experts that you mentioned before, I think we're quite blessed being living at this time, at this age, because the information is so free flowing. You can literally pick up your smartphone. You can access all sorts of information from people who either qualify or not so qualified, right? And it's very often very hard to distinguish between the difference. And
Mm-hmm.
I like to think people have the good judgment to be able to tell them apart. But a lot of times the popularity kind of drives the, how credible they are to a certain extent. If someone is very well known, you tend to trust them more, and maybe rightly so. But at the same time, um, I think because there's so much information, you can read one thing and it gets blown up and completely out of proportion. It's not just soy products. I read comments of people terrified of avocados and all sorts of things. Literally, anything can kill you. That's the conclusion if you Google long enough.
Oh
And
yeah.
so it's about having that zoomed out view constantly to remind yourself not to get consumed and kind of sucked into a certain idea and start to sort of be afraid of food. And as you said, it's about spreading the risk to a certain extent. If you have sort of, quite balanced, broad selection of food. I mean, if you eat too much of anything, it will probably kill you. But try not to do that. So.
Yeah. So you had talked about how you had gone vegetarian, then vegan, and then keto. Keto was the third
That's
step.
right. Yes.
So what led you to keto? Was it health concerns, weight? It seems like lots of times people come in, based on weight. You don't look like you've ever had a weight problem, but I'll let you answer the question rather than me trying to guess at what the answer is.
I've never been sort of obese or overweight in the sort of conventional sense, but I always feel fat. That's
Mhm.
that it's not body dysmorphia. So I kind of touch upon it on some of my videos. I was aspiring to be a dancer, and and if you have been to dance school, you know how brutal it is when it comes to discipline your body and keeping a certain shape. And it's all fair game. But as a young person, being that environment, I think probably wasn't the healthier thing because you were being criticized for your body shape from a very young age when you have no external reference to know whether that's reasonable. And so it was extremely traumatic process for me to go through because I have a normal body. I'm not naturally skinny. And so I struggle a lot. And that experience kind of maybe planted some seeds for me to struggle with myself and also eating pattern as well. I don't know how to explain that, sort of whether there's a medical term, but carbohydrate definitely drives me to eat more carbohydrate. I think there's you can probably explain that in a
Mm.
biological sense. But um, I always struggle with kind of controlling my portion and in the to the point that serves my body. And I knew there was a dysfunction kind of being ongoing. Even externally, I wasn't obese. And I would say to this day, probably not many people, if at all, sort of people around me, including my close friends and family, they were aware of my struggle with food. This is probably a sort of revelation for them, because you learn to cope with it and maybe hide it well as well. So I struggle to keep a sort of normal, sort of acceptable kind of shape for myself. So I think, like a lot of people, I've been looking for ways to not just lose weight, but be able to stay there. Because any diet, if you do it, you can probably lose a few pounds. That's not a problem. Is what happens 6 months later, a year later,
Mhm.
2 years later. And that has been a struggle. So as I said, as I mentioned earlier on, I tried Atkins as well a few years ago when I was a vegetarian. And also all sorts of diets you can think of, calorie counting and everything. And I never understood why nothing worked. Because if you look at the science, yeah, if you cut calories, you lose weight, and that's kind of what should happen. But it doesn't stay there. So all my life, I would say I was constantly looking for a solution for it, and I actually can't remember why I tried keto. I think bringing down carbohydrate, I knew worked somehow. And then I was Googling around, and, it, I thought, well, it's not called Atkins anymore, it's called keto. But I kind of looked into the science into it, and understood a little bit more. And well, the only way to find out was to try. So I just started modifying my diet, and see what happens.
I find that any article or news story I read or see about keto, the one thing you can always count on is them saying one of the reasons keto doesn't work is it's not sustainable. You've been doing keto now for over 4 years. What would your argument be against those people that say it's not sustainable?
I don't know what to say to them, because um, you make it sustainable. I think any diet, any kind of way of eating, even being a vegan, some people can't stay on, being vegan. It doesn't mean the thing doesn't work. Is how you do it, I suppose. And I think that probably varies from person to person. And the most recent video, I was talking about how I practice it to make it work for me. And I think that's the key, because there isn't one way. And that's the problem when you have a sort of, keto Bible in front of you and say, this is a textbook because someone says so. And you do it, it doesn't work. You keep doing it, thinking it should work. And then you eventually give up and say, well, maybe, the whole thing just botched. It's not so. I think you can make anything work, but you have to be very realistic and being very creative, and be practical with your approach. It's not all or nothing, just because you're on keto for 3 weeks, you have a piece of bread for whatever reason, it doesn't mean you ruin everything. You just
Mhm.
go back and do it again, because it serves your body. So, yeah. So, well, I don't know if I can do it forever, never, but yeah, I'm still on it. So,
So you'd mentioned creativity and being creative, and certainly I think we are at the best point in time in history for keto, because we do have people that are very creative, like you, coming up with recipes that are able to scratch the itch that people have. The urges, the cravings, etc., can be satisfied now by a great many recipes that are out on the internet or YouTube. And one of the more famous ones is the heavenly fry. So it's almost become sort of legendary. I think people don't even refer to it like as Heavenly Fan's French fry recipe. It's just the heavenly fry. Can you talk a little bit about how that came out and what was the impact on your channel after you released that video? And oh, by the way,
Um,
I'll link for if anybody hasn't seen that video, I'm going to link to it down in the description so that you can watch it. Okay,
Thank you
now
so
go
much.
ahead.
Um, I have no idea how that whole thing happened. It's a mystery to me. So I think I explained that in the video as well. I was trying to experiment on making noodles and pasta, and I do have a recipe that use vital wheat gluten, but in a way that's kind of a cheating halfway because you're using gluten essentially. But so I was in the process of doing that, and it failed miserably. And so I thought, well, I've got a whole bunch of these, dough sticks. Maybe I can fry them, make them crispy. Everything tastes good fried. So I tried that, and I go, well, they look suspiciously like French fries. And so I tweak the sort of ingredients a little bit and fry them a different way, and they kind of came out like French fries. So I kind of half-heartedly when I put on the video, I said, well, people are going to look at it and say, well, these are not French fries. It doesn't but it's fun to eat, right? It's something crunchy and quite easy to make. And that was that. And probably within 3 days, I knew that people kind of reacted to it. And yeah, I've been watching that process, with intrigue. So yeah, I'm just glad that people kind of liked it and enhanced their life in some way. So I'm happy.
When you released that video, I left a comment telling you, get ready because a lot of people are going to copy this and a lot of them are not going to give you credit. Do you ever go out and do a search on keto fry recipes just to see if it's your same recipe and if someone gave you credit or not?
Well, not actively. I don't get that as much now, but in the when it started to happen, I got messages almost daily. Some really sort of helpful people
Mhm.
basically sending me links and say, "Hey, fan, this person just used your recipe, but they claim to be their own," and stuff like that. Um, and I was really grateful, that people pay attention and kind of, they wanted to protect the recipe and want to kind of credit me for that. Um, but to a certain extent, I think once you put something online, particularly a recipe, it belongs to everyone.
Mm.
I do see that's how I see recipes because there's some really great recipes that were inherited from generations before that continue to enhance our lives. And I see that as almost a gift. And I'm very grateful if I have created something that people feel that it makes them happy, and that's all the credit I need. I don't need them to mention me or say that's a fan, you're great. It's very nice to have that, but at the same time, it's a piece of property that belongs to everyone. That's how I see it. So
Yeah, there's really sort of extremes that I've witnessed between the people that I mean, you're on a very sort of philosophically peaceful place with your response there. There are other people that
yes.
get uh, just livid if you didn't mention that they felt they were the first two people to combine lemons and water or something. It's they demand credit if you use anything vaguely resembling their recipe, and then you can do a little searching and find out, oh, look, someone else made this before you. So yeah, it's one of those things where um my stance is you give somebody credit. You say this is based on, or thank you to Fan for coming up with this idea. She inspired me to do this. I think to me that's sort of the right middle ground. You thank somebody for the inspiration, and then I also believe that you don't just put out a copycat video. You got to bring something to the table yourself, some way that you improved it, tweaked it, whatever. One of the things I had tried doing is I had an adjustable potato ricer. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with these devices. I don't even know what I would describe as it looks like, but you put a
I think I
potato in.
know what you mean. Yes,
There's a dial
squeeze
down at the
out like
bottom.
noodles. Yes.
Yeah, you can go anywhere from like super fine to, sort of square shaped. And I thought, what if I put Fan's dough in this? I could squeeze it out and it's going to come out
Presto.
just like fries. I'll just do it right over the oil, and it's going to be magic. No, that didn't work out at all, which is why
Oh.
I don't have a video duplicating your recipe. One of the things that I see periodically within the vegan community is attempting to recreate meat type substances like the Impossible Burger. There's a channel, I don't know if you've watched. If not, you may want to check it out. It's called, I think, Sauce Stash, like mustache
Right.
stash. Um, this guy's really into molecular gastronomy and, creating, bacon out of tofu and all kinds of things like that. Do you ever have any desire to try and duplicate meat type products, animal type products out of vegan ingredients?
Um, I think if you look at the in the Buddhist cuisine, and that's both maybe China and also Japan as well. There's a long tradition of vegan cooking that create things that look like animal food, like fish, like meat, like pork, that kind of things. Um, Yes, I think as a vegan, very often, I wouldn't even say that's criticism, but general observation that there are products out there, like this you said, um, that try to create meat-like products. This is how I look at it. I see it as a way to create the texture rather than anything else. And I definitely experienced that through the sort of recipe creation process. So a lot of times, what we're trying to create is that experience, the texture of something. So when it comes to sort of meat product, if you think about it, unless you're brought up as a vegan and never touch meat ever, we're brought up and conditioned to eat food with certain texture, certain combinations, certain flavor, what it feels like when you taste in your mouth. And a lot of these things, maybe the Impossible Burger, what is it called? The burger thing, or soy chunks, all that stuff. All of that is an attempt to recreate the texture we're familiar with, so we can incorporate that into our cooking to feel, well, in a way, we're not missing anything, right? And the reason we think we might be missing something is because how we're conditioned to eat at this point. So I don't see that as a moral conflict. I don't see that. I personally have no problem with someone trying to create sort of meat-like products, whatever it is you call it, and all of that is to fulfill that sense of absence that we have. It's not, if you're vegan, you know where you stand, and I'm not talking about right or wrong. It's very personal choice, whatever you choose to eat or not to eat. But I don't see it as a hypocritical if you try to make it, look like a burger. I have recipes that use tofu to create burger buns, right? And I wouldn't, I don't think I'm being hypocritical. It's about creating something that we enjoy eating all along. And ultimately it's tofu, it's not meat. So that's kind of how I look at it. I see the whole thing is to capture the food that we're familiar with, so we can continue to be on whatever diet, vegan or vegetarian. So I personally don't have any issues with that. The only thing I have is through that process, if the product ends up being highly processed and with absence of nutrient. It's just pure texture. Then from the health point of view, I do have issues.
Yeah, I don't think it's hypocritical at all either. I know that there are certain people that are very dogmatic within, well, I'm more familiar obviously with the keto and carnivore community, but you get people saying, even on the chaffle, you're trying to make something that is bread like or waffle like or whatever, just suck it up and eat a ribeye, use a burger patty as your bun, or something like that. Why are you trying? You're as bad as those vegans making their fake meat. And, I don't care if a vegan makes fake meat, and I don't care if a,
Me
if a
either.
keto person makes fake bread or fake potatoes. It's, it's part of enjoying. I mean, to me, I think food is not just there to be a nutrient. It's something to enjoy, both in terms of taste and in terms of a social experience as well, something you share with friends and family and so on. Food shouldn't be misery. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I tend not to be especially judgmental or dogmatic in that regard. But that does bring me to another question regarding the social aspect of food. Do you cook just for yourself, or do you cook for family, for friends?
I live on my own, so I cook for myself. But
Okay.
there are occasions that I cook for friends, of course, and well, family, yes. They're in Taipei, so they're quite far away. But yeah, I think I do have that advantage that I don't have to constantly organize and cook for someone else. And I think that would probably, make things a lot trickier. And but I constantly have sort of comments from people who have, a family, maybe one is vegan, one is on keto, and one is on whatever diet. And they're able to use my recipes to create something that suits everybody. And that always makes me happy because they're not in a very enviable position if people have different dietary needs, etc. So yeah, it can be a lot trickier. But I think socially, I think being a vegan, the training of being a vegan probably helps a lot because it becomes your second nature to be able to go to a restaurant or socialize with people and find something that you can eat. So it's not difficult at all. I don't particularly go to vegan restaurants. I rarely do. I go to a normal eatery place, and I just know what to choose.
Lots of times people will ask me, going to a restaurant on keto isn't that hard? And my answer is no, it's actually easier because it narrows down your options rather significantly on the menu. You don't find yourself, waffling between three or four different things like, what should I eat? You're like, okay, it looks like, I got to dial right into this, niche right here. Is it similar with keto and especially vegan keto? You find it's like an Easter egg hunt on the menu, trying to find that one magic meal.
I think that's definitely, there's definitely something to that. It's like, I think if you go to a restaurant, it's got a menu, it's got 20 pages. You're going to sit there for about half an hour, try to ponder upon what to eat. But if you go to a restaurant that's got 10 things on the menu, it's very easy to find something you want. So I think sometimes limitation gives you a lot more freedom and clarity about what you want. And yeah, I definitely, as I said, being a vegan probably is a good training that it becomes second nature. I can just walk in anywhere and I go, oh yeah, that would be my food. That's not. So yeah, it definitely makes things easier. I agree.
Do you have a recipe that you've made for friends and they're blown away? They're like, I had no idea this was keto. I had no idea this was vegan. That's sort of your go-to that could potentially win somebody over to keto.
I would say top of my list would be the keto shepherd's pie with the cauliflower mash.
Mm.
A lot of people don't even know it's cauliflower. It tastes like potato. Um, I think because the combination, you just automatically sort of assume, you've got like potato mash on top. And and mix with the filling, etc. And yeah, I think that's very well received. And also the bread bun as well. They're made of almond flour. The texture is so bread-like. Unless you really, and particularly if you put some fillings and some spread, you really don't know. So yeah, I'll say these two are pretty much my winners.
Do you have a favorite kitchen gadget or appliance?
Oh, chopsticks.
Wow, that's
Versatile.
oh, anything that runs on electricity.
Oh, definitely my mixer. So I've got a really trusty mixer. So, because when I make the videos, I try to do it by hand because not everybody's got a mixer. But at home, when I want to do something quickly, I just chuck everything in a mixer, blend it and mix it. And then I've got my dough for baking or whatever. So definitely, I worked it really hard. So,
On the subject of videos, just because I think a lot of people think we just whip these things together, and you've already admitted that
oh, I
you're
do.
living alone, so I'm assuming you're in charge of filming, editing, everything. How much time goes into making a 6 to 10 minute video?
Oh man, oh man. And I think you're asking because you know the answers, right? Um, a
But I want
lot
people to
of
hear it from
time.
someone other than me.
Yes, I know. And I'm not moaning. I enjoy every moment. But so the typical length of my videos probably around 10 minutes to 15, etc. And most of the times the filming part of it and the setup, the preparation, I'm not talking about sourcing ingredients, just the setting things up and filming, it would take a good part of a day most of the time. I'm talking probably no less than 6 hours, and particularly with baking because I tend to film in sequence. I don't prepare things beforehand and go, ta-la, here's the what I've made earlier. Um, I If something takes an hour to bake, I wait.
Mhm.
So I do the preparation and talk through the ingredients, and then whatever time takes to make that thing, I wait till the end. I take it out of the oven and I eat it. And so it takes time, but that's the filming part. Comparing to editing is actually on the easy side. Um, well, in considering I actually come from digital background, I work in IT and design. So I've got some, basic training on how to use software. And so I don't envy people who start from scratch. Um, but even for me, a 10, 15-minute videos with all the editing put together, um, yeah, sometimes up to 12 hours. It does that. And because when you film everything, and there are a
Mhm.
lot of footage to go through, and particularly with the type of stuff I do instruction. It's tutorial, and it needs to be clear and precise. And I want to show what people need to see. So it's you go through everything you've got and chop and piece them together. It takes time. It's yeah, a lot of work.
Yeah, it's one of those things that would be interesting to go back and look at on average for a 6 to 10 minute video, how many total minutes of footage were recorded to condense, down into that, cutting out the bloopers, things of that nature. Um, if you were to guess, how much footage do you record to actually get a,
Oh
a 10 minute
dear.
video?
I really don't know. All I know is my memory cards are big and sometimes they fold up. So it really depends on the recipe. Hours, probably easily. Obviously in different chunks. Yeah, a lot of footage to go through. Typically, I'll have at least 10, 15 clips to sort through. So because once you're done, you're done. You can't you don't want to redo it. So you
Yeah.
try to capture whatever possible, just in case. And sometimes you repeat the process or say things. If you say it wrong, you say it again. Yeah, it's not pretty. It's not pretty.
Well, and you can tell me if you experience this as well. There are mistakes you make that you don't realize till you get into the editor. And you're like, if I had
Oh,
somebody that was helping me, they would have said, no, Steve, you said teaspoon instead of tablespoon or whatever. Do you
yeah.
find yourself dealing with that from time to time?
Yeah, sometimes I don't realize, even through editing, until someone pointed out when I upload it. So, for instance, the famous one would be my one carb keto flatbread, and that haunts me forever. I say instead of baking soda, I say baking powder, or the other way around. I can't
Ooh,
remember.
oops.
And for 3 years, that video has been out there for nearly 4 years, and there's still comments I get to say, "Hey, you said that wrong." So yeah, unfortunately, once it's up there, you can't really correct it. There's
Yeah,
no
You,
way
you,
to kind of modify it. So
you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
no,
This
no,
is
it's
what, this
gone.
is
It's
what I
out.
say.
Yes.
So we're we were shooting for. I always shoot for a half hour, and I always wind up going to about 50 minutes, which we're creeping up on. So the last thing I think I want to ask is, aside from we had talked about the keto benefit with weight or body composition. What else would you say has been your favorite side effect of the keto lifestyle?
I would actually say the weight management is almost become a side note for me being on keto. It's no longer the reason I'm on keto. Um, I feel my body has never been so calm.
Hmm.
And that's really hard to explain when your body's constantly in turmoil because of the, either sugar level up and down. And also for me, carbohydrate definitely drives me to overeat more than what my body needs. And it's a kind of dysfunction I wasn't able to correct until I go on keto. And so that kind of serenity and kind of calmness is why I'm on it, because I feel my system is freed up to do other things when I'm not constantly thinking about what I'm going to cook next. I mean, obviously I think about it, it's a joy, but it has become a joy rather than going, if I eat that, I'm going to pay for it.
Yeah.
That is no longer there, and it's such a free thing, that unless you have food issues, you really do not understand. Because some people say, well, just eat low GI food, or just have some bread, just have it in moderation, and that's fine. That's the issues. My body didn't allow me to have it just in moderation, to keep my body in a healthy level. So I say weight thing is probably I wouldn't say the last reason. It's a great benefit, but it's that overall calmness of your system that I wasn't able to achieve through other means. So
And it's very hard to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it. The mental clarity, the lack of inflammation, just the holistic element of how you feel. You feel younger, you feel more alert, you feel more present. I don't know that I can actually articulate it any better than you did, but it's one of those things that people don't know how good a person can feel, how good your body can feel until they experience it. And I think a lot of people, especially here in the States, just resign themselves to the fact that they're going to feel miserable and get used to it, and it's going to get worse as they age. And to
well,
me,
that's the
that's what.
thing. Yeah. Well, I get a lot of comments from people who, have quite severe health issues, whether it's diabetes or that kind of thing, or heart issues, and they describe how they feel when they go on keto. Um, it's how do I explain it? As you said, if your body was never in turmoil, if you're so lucky, you can eat whatever you want, you just feel great, then you probably cannot appreciate what we're saying here. But when your body is constantly in battle and finally find peace, that is somewhere that you don't want to leave. And I think that the benefit of being on keto is just, to be able to regain that dignity of existence to a great extent, because as you said, some people kind of forgo the idea of they will ever feel well. I remember talking to people when I mentioned the feeling of well-being. They didn't understand it. They said, well, I'm healthy, I'm not sick. But not being sick doesn't mean you're healthy. It doesn't mean you feel well. Well-being is an overall thing. Until you experience it, you don't understand it. And we equate, not having to go to doctor or have a diagnosable disease as being healthy. And hopefully through my channel, I want to explain that, because that's ultimately what we're trying to achieve. And it's your birthright. So do not give it up. You deserve that sense of well-being. Doesn't It's never too late. You just need to experiment and find your way there. It's something that we all deserve.
I don't think that I could end this interview any more beautifully than what you just said. So I think I'm going to take that as the opportunity to wrap this up. To say thank you so much for joining me for this co-podcast interview, and to tell my viewers, if you're not familiar with Heavenly Fan, get out onto her channel. As I said before, I'm going to link to it down below in the description. It's great stuff. It's going to enhance your creativity. She may not turn you vegan. Hopefully she doesn't. Well, maybe she does. That way, there's more meat for me. But she's remarkably creative and very pleasant to listen to, and she's going to inspire you. So get out there, check out her channel. Thank you, Fan, for joining me, and thank
Thank
all
you,
of you
Steve.
for watching.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It's my pleasure.